Head on Fire is a Patreon-supported podcast. Supporters of the show get early access to ad-free episodes, a private Discord server, archives, and more. All benefits are offered on a sliding scale, so no matter your level of donation, you never miss out. If you like this show, consider supporting it with $1 a month or whatever you can at patreon.com/headonfirepod. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Picture it. Huntington, West Virginia, 2004, a burgeoning blonde homosexual is walking the aisles of a now-defunct book and music superstore called Borders when he comes across a CD featuring a young woman with vibrant magenta hair blowing an iridescent pink bubble standing against a washed-out blue backdrop with the kind of hanging light that makes one think of an indie movie about cops and serial killers. The album was called Trouble, and it was by singer-songwriter Bonnie McKee, whose artistry is like if scientists were able to combine both Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and raise the resulting child in one of the weirder Saturday morning cartoons from the 80s. Her album joined a very small rotation of music that would form the basis for almost all of my core memories from my freshman year at college. Her songs January and A Voice That Carries became car karaoke staples of mine. I would practice the upward runs of sensitive subject matter. Literally, the only reason I know that the movie Win a Date with Tad Hamilton exists is because her song Somebody was featured on the soundtrack. She was my idol. And apparently I was the only one. Okay, well, not the only one, but one of fewer than 17,000, the number of copies the album sold, which in the music industry at the time was considered a flop. However, Bonnie didn't let that stop her. She used her industry connections and evocative songwriting to forge a new path behind the scenes, writing hits for other people. And a few years later, suddenly Bonnie McKee was in rooms with the pop songwriting god himself, Max Martin, churning out massive international hits. She wrote Hold It Against Me for Britney Spears, the Pride anthem Let There Be Love for Christina Aguilera, Dynamite for Teo Cruz, and perhaps most famously, she's responsible for Katy Perry's songs Teenage Dream, California Girls, and Last Friday Night. But when Bonnie wanted the spotlight to shine on her again, the music industry said no. In 2013, while her songs were selling millions upon millions of copies for other people, she tried to relaunch her solo career with a song called American Girl, a song that did quite well, but not well enough for her label. 10 years later, Bonnie McKee is a force to be reckoned with in the music industry. Her name carries plenty of respect as a songwriter, but she refuses to let go of the dream of being the one behind the microphone. And that's why she's going independent and launching an album of her own making called Hot City later this year. We sat down for a conversation about artistry, dreams, and what it takes to make it in an industry built around putting people in boxes and keeping them there. Bonnie McKee, welcome to Head on Fire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I am so honored to get to speak with you, mostly because for folks who don't know you or what it is that you do, tell people a little bit about yourself.
I'm Bonnie McKee. I'm best known as a professional songwriter. I've written 10 number one songs for all your favorite pop stars, Britney Spears, Katy Perry, Kelly Clarkson, Christina Aguilera, Carly Rae Jepsen. You know, I love a diva. And I am also an indie artist, and I have been making my own music since I came to Los Angeles. Well, I mean, since I was a child, but I've been in LA for about 20 years and just fighting the good fight in the cutthroat music industry and still standing. So,
you know, there are a few people in music who every now and then get called the music industry. Oh, you know, Ariana Grande is the music industry right now. Taylor Swift is the music industry right now. But what I don't think people realize is there's an entire group of people who are much more accurately representative of the phrase, the music industry of a particular period. And that's, of course, songwriters. And your songs have dominated radio for many, many years, racking up multiple international number one singles. So I have to ask you, what's it like being the music industry? Because Ms. Bonnie McKee, for quite a while, you've been it.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I was lucky enough to be kind of in the right place at the right time. There are a lot of really talented writers out there that don't get the opportunities that I've had. So I don't know that there's anything particularly special about me, except that I had good timing and I had the right co-writers, you know, like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't write any of these songs by myself. I was in the rooms with, you know, Max Martin and Katy Perry and Dr. Luke and all of these like huge, incredible songwriters and producers. And I mean, of course it's going to be a hit when you're in the room with
Yeah.
people of that caliber, you know? So for when I had my first hit ever, which was California Girls, I had been struggling for years already and it didn't really feel real. And I really struggled to kind of accept any praise for it because I felt like it was
Hmm.
cheating. I had imposter syndrome. And I was just like, yeah, no, I was just like, happened to be the other person in the room. But then, you know, as time went on and as the hits kept happening, I finally, I mean, years after was like, okay, I guess maybe I did have a lot to do with that, you know? But it took me a while to sort of accept that.
How long did it take you?
I mean, a few years. It was just kind of shell shock, just like it just kept happening and kept. It was just I had like 4 number one songs in one summer, which is really
Yeah.
unheard of and really insane. And it was a huge relief because I had been struggling for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was also like kind of bittersweet because I really wanted to be an artist. Like that was really my
Mm-hmm.
first love, and still is. And so, yeah, it was hard at first, but then it was really cool to be recognized for my intellectual property. Um, because I think, you know, as a woman in the industry, it's like I kind of came up feeling like I had to be cute and do a little dance and have a pretty voice for anyone to care. And so it was cool that my writing was what got me where I am today.
You know, I remember getting that first album of yours, like stumbling across it in a Borders, which like RIP Borders, it was the Superior
Yeah.
bookstore chain. I remember coming across Trouble, and I think in the jacket notes of that, you described yourself as like a combination of Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. And I have always described your music and your style that way, but also as though like a mad scientist took one part Britney and one part Christina, and then took that resulting child and raised it on like the very best 80s cartoons ever, like the deep cut 80s cartoons, like the weirder episodes of Rainbow Bright. Like, so I'm just curious, like what were your early influences and how did you come to music?
You know, it's funny that you say that because like I grew up on pop music. I loved Madonna and Michael Jackson and Prince and Britney Spears. But that wasn't the kind of music that I made naturally.
Mm.
Because I was
Mm-hmm.
classically trained. I was like a poet, you know. And so I also loved Carole King. Like Carole King was a huge influence on me and Fiona Apple. And so, you know, in my head, I was like a Britney Spears, but when I opened my mouth, I sounded like more of a Fiona Apple, like singer songwriter thing. And so there was a big disconnect between me and the label and like what was in my head, who I wanted to be, and what was coming out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, I think, has to do with the producers that I was put in the room with. And also at the time, it was like Michelle Branch and, God, what is her name? Vanessa
Oh,
Carlton.
Vanessa
Um,
Carlton. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think they wanted me to be the girl behind the piano and I wanted to
Sure.
dance and I wanted to make, you know, bright, sexy music videos. And so I was very like creatively frustrated because it's hard to get what's in your head out. If you don't know how to produce, if you don't know, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so it took me a really long time to finally find the collaborators that were able to help me create what I was hearing in my head.
You know, I kind of identify that from a writer's perspective. I'm a poet as well, and transitioning to, you know, I've written, but my debut Big Five publishing was in nonfiction randomly. Like it was just this weird
Mm-hmm.
backdoor because, you know, you find your way to success in the strangest ways. Sometimes you wanted to be a performer, you ended up being a songwriter. Not that you're not a performer, but that was your sort of inroad into like A-level success. And mine was nonfiction. I never thought it was going to be. And, you know, I'm curious about, your 30,000 foot perspective now, looking back on your career, maybe advice to younger folks starting out about maybe saying yes to opportunity, because, it is just so interesting how when you start out, both you put yourself into a box and everybody that you meet along the way is also trying to put you in a box. And the longer you let people put you in a box, the more rigid that box becomes.
Yes.
And so in order to say, I've been in PR and marketing meetings where somebody saw the tagline for my book and said, okay, well, we're going to put you in these rooms and on these panels and these discussions and yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, well, you can, but that is not going to go well. Also, has anybody here actually read my book? No? Okay. Maybe do that before telling me how you should market me. So how do you feel about those boxes? How do you feel about finding your audience? And how do you feel about, sort of those early labels at the early part of people's careers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think that, from a label's perspective, you do kind of have to find a lane for your artist. Yeah. I think that things have changed a lot with with social media and people and the artists being able to really have a personality and not just whatever a label or a marketing department puts forward for them. So that is a huge freedom that I think that newer artists today really take for granted. It used to be you couldn't put out music unless you had a record deal. And if you had a record deal, you didn't really have any control over the narrative of who you are and what you sound like. So it is a huge freedom today to be able to do that. But as far as being put in a box, I didn't really know that was going to be a problem. I was like, okay, I was broke. I was really broke when I started writing songs for other people, and I was just trying to get by. And I knew I was going to get in the room with cool people, and I could learn a lot. I wanted to really hone my craft. And, but there is definitely a stigma that comes with being a songwriter, especially if you have success in the industry, where it's you are just a songwriter. And that's something that I'm still fighting to this day. Everyone in the industry knows my name, and I have a reputation for my work. But when I walk in the room as an artist, people are I've literally had CEOs of big record companies that I've known for years that I know love me and respect me. I'm like, hey, so this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, oh, you're still trying to be an artist? And I'm like, trying? I don't have a choice. I wish, I literally have prayed where I'm just please God, relieve me of this, of this desire to be an artist. Not to be an artist, but to succeed as an artist,
Sure.
I tried to quit for a while where I was just this is too heartbreaking to keep trying to sell myself to people as an artist. Maybe I'm just delusional. Maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree, and I need to just be happy with what the universe has given me, which is a beautiful life and getting to create songs and collaborate with other artists and let them have their vision. And so I tried for a few years to sort of damp it down and be okay, just do what's right in front of you and be grateful. And I was just very unhappy. I was very unhappy. And so I finally was you know what, I took a look at my life and was what really makes me happy? When am I happiest? And I'm happiest when I'm performing, when I'm in front of the camera, when I'm on set making music videos, doing movies. I made a movie in the pandemic that randomly won a bunch of awards. And so, I do more than write songs, and I love writing songs, but there's a lot more to me. And so, the past few years, where have I been? I've been kind of figuring out what my other skills are and putting those to the test. So,
you rose to prominence during a period of time when that we are currently kind of renegotiating our relationship and understanding with. That period. Trouble came out in 2004. And, your period of big number one hits was somewhere around 2009, 2010 through about 2013, 2014 or so. So during that 10-year period, there's a lot of songs that you ended up writing for people whose public relationships were now kind of renegotiating. Britney Spears being one of them, Kelly Clarkson, Katy Perry, just a lot of people that late night comedians, the populace at large, really did really dirty. I'm wondering, because there's another side to, well, gosh, my success found me in a different way than I expected. Do you ever look back on that period and think, well, if I had made it behind the microphone at the time I wanted to make it behind the microphone, gosh, I wonder, did I maybe dodge a bullet by not being as big as the people whose hits I was making? Like, do you ever think about that?
All the time. Yeah. And like, if my first album had worked, I might be dead, honestly, because I'm a recovering addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And, I was really in the throes of that. And I think I also was just young and naive and cocky and like ego driven. And I think that had I gotten everything I wanted and not fallen flat on my face, I would not have been humbled. I would not have learned a lot of really important life lessons that I needed to learn. And I probably would have killed myself with drugs and drinking. But also I think it made me a better artist, because I got a huge record deal when I was 16, 17. Like moved to LA by myself, had all of this money in my pocket, had my own apartment when all of my peers were like still in high school. Everyone's kissing my ass. I'm an industry darling. And like, I thought I made it. Little did I know, getting a record deal is really the first of many, many, many steps, and all of the stars have to align. And so I think it was important for me to be humbled and fall on my face, and also like have a very real experience of like having it all, losing it all, having it all again, losing it all again. Like that's a big part of my story, is like perseverance. And so I think that it's made me a better artist for that.
You've talked a lot about, you talk a lot about pop music, you write pop music. Pop music in general has always gotten a pretty bad rap. A lot of people like to poo-poo on pop music, especially from like the late 90s and to today. To be fair, almost everything that is generally seen as being marketed to primarily young women isn't treated with a lot of respect. But pop music specifically is seen as like vapid, having very little to say, as being about nothing. Now, I am a very gay millennial of a very certain age. So I disagree with that, because most of my blood type is made up of pop music and pop divas. But so I very much disagree. But what do you think those types of critics are missing from pop music? What do you think that the folks who'd like, oh, I don't like that, an entire genre of music, this multi-billion-dollar industry, I don't like any of that. That has nothing for me. What do you think people are missing there?
I think it's really silly because, and I do think that the opinion has changed on that in the past decade or so. It used to be very much, and even when I was in middle school or whatever, it was like you were either into pop or you were into rock or you were into hip hop, and it's like you had to pick a lane. And I feel like now with playlisting and stuff, like you can really love all genres, and I feel like it's kind of like uncool not to. And I think that people mishear pop music as like, if something is just like fun and boppy and upbeat, that it's not saying anything. And some pop music doesn't say anything, and that's okay. And we all need an escape, I mean, it's the same thing as like, watching a stupid comedy or whatever. It's like, okay, like maybe we're not like learning big life lessons, but like we want to escape. But in my own writing anyway, I always try to have an underlying message. Like everything that I write, even if it sounds like the dumbest little bop, it comes from a real place, whether it's from me or it's from the artist that I'm working with. I try to really always have a root of something real. And I know I've definitely had moments where I've heard a song that I've known for years, like I had a moment I remember once where I was driving the car. I was going through, like, I was in a messy relationship, and Hot and Cold came on. Katy Perry's Hot and Cold came on,
Yeah.
which I always just had like objectively been like, oh, this is a great pop song, like opposites, up, down, left, right, hot, cold. And then, but I was dealing with someone that was kind of like wishy-washy, and I was like, it just hit me. Like one day it just hit me, and I was like, oh my God, you're hot, you're cold, you're up, you're down. And I was like, oh my God, like there's a message here. But it like took me a couple of years of listening to it, and I just had to be in the right place for it to hit me. And I had a similar experience with Love is a Battlefield. I remember I was like, long time ago. I was out at the club, I was drunk, I was high, I was like, going through it, like crying on the dance floor. Like that song came on, and I was like, I'm hearing this song for the first time. And like, I feel like, if a pop songwriter is smart, you'll find something that can really resonate with someone. And there is lots of vapid pop music out there. Sure.
But who doesn't love it?
But pop music, but also pop music as a craft is one of the most difficult genres to write because it is a moving target. Like country music is genius in its storytelling, and there are a million different ways to spin it. I love how they do it in Nashville. But musically, for the most part, there is a very specific genre there. There's a very specific sound that, and I've written in Nashville, and they're always like, "You're too pop. Like this isn't a country song." And I'm like, okay, so
get
like
Carrie Underwood on the phone.
There's a certain formula for that genre that everyone follows, and when it comes to pop, like it really is so broad, and it's constantly changing and evolving. And I think that's what's so exciting about it. Because pop is short for popular, like the goal is to reach the masses and to write a song that can relate to your grandma and your little cousin and your boyfriend or girl, whatever. It's not easy to reach the masses. And so that's what I really love about the challenge of writing pop music.
I think you bring up a really important point. I think that it's one of those genres that I think is undervalued because people simply do not listen to the lyrics, and they don't appreciate that those lyrics came from a real person and from a real place. It's sort of like, I always think of that kind of iconic moment in Kelly Clarkson's career where Piece by Piece came out, and then she did it just with that piano on American Idol, and then she like sobbed through it, and then suddenly people were like, oh, that's what that song was about. Whoops. We missed that one. Or like when Pumped Up Kicks was the big song all over the country, and everybody was just kind of like bopping along to Pumped Up Kicks, and then folks realized, oh wait, this song, yikes,
heavy. Yeah. No, I love a hidden message in a pop song. I really do, and I always try to sneak something in there.
What's something you've snuck into a pop song that you don't think people have caught yet?
Well, I think most people caught it, but like in American Girl, my own song, I think first listen, it's like, oh, America, ooh. Like it's a satirical song.
Sure.
It's and it's really about the experience of what it's like to be a girl in America, and kind of the attitude of being an American, which is like complicated and fun and privileged, but also like can get weird, and the expectations and all of that. And so I think that is kind of like, people think that is like a Yay America song, but it's not. And also I think probably the biggest example of my hidden stuff is the chorus on Dynamite, Tayo Cruz's Dynamite, not BTS's Dynamite. And I throw my hands up in the air sometimes saying, hey, oh, baby, let's go. And people always ask me like, oh, why do you throw your hands up in the air? Why do you throw your hands up in the air only sometimes? And I'm like, well, it's like, it's not actually a party song for me. I wrote that song when I was just getting sober, and it's about surrender. And it's about letting go. So it's like, sometimes you throw your hands up in the air and just say, gotta let it go. It's not like, yeah, we're gonna rock sometimes, So I think it's just funny, like seeing the way that song was received. I mean, I knew I wanted it to be received as a party song, obviously, but people just don't always realize where these songs come from.
It's interesting the themes that we revisit in our writing. As you're redescribing American Girl to me, it reminds me of the song from your first album, Just a Girl. I'm just a girl. I use my gender to my advantage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Confessions of a Teenage Girl.
Yes. Yeah. Songwriting is coming under a lot of scrutiny in recent years. I know Diane Warren got into kind of some hot water last year with I guess what she thought was going to be a pretty chill take on Beyonce's latest album, and saying, "Oh, why does a song have so many writers these days? Back in my day, we just had one songwriter." Yeah, you've worked on a number of songs that ended up having multiple credited writers. So a lot of what this show does is talk to people in fields where folks feel like they kind of already know everything about a field. And I feel like songwriting is one of those. So you've worked on some songs where you're the only credited songwriter, and you've worked on songs where you're one of a pretty large group. Mm-hmm. What does the general public not understand about how and why so many people get credited for writing songs?
Well, first of all, Diane Warren is a special breed of songwriter. She's 100%er. She writes everything herself, always. She doesn't, as far as I know, I don't think she co-writes at all. And that's incredible. And like, we don't all have that kind of luxury where people will trust us to do that. Mm-hmm. But in pop music, it really takes a village. There are producers. Oftentimes mm-hmm. there's more than one producer. There's a team of producers. It's incredibly tedious. That creating a pop song, making the track is like hours and hours and hours to polish something. And it's nice to have someone to collaborate with, first of all, just on the production side, to have another brain. And then when it comes to the top line, which is the melody and lyric, it's also nice to have someone to ping pong with and share your ideas with. And if you have an artist who is extremely busy touring the world and doing all this stuff, like, they don't necessarily have the time to sit down and craft something all by themselves. Some of them do. And that doesn't mean they're not capable, but it's just like, why not phone a friend, you know? And when it comes to the Beyonce stuff, there's a lot of samples on that. And so when you have a sample in a song, that means that everyone that worked on that original song is going to be credited, plus all of the new people that you've brought on. So it really does take a village. And, you know, there are plenty of artists where it's just a producer and a writer. But for the most part, it takes a whole team of people to make something happen. And it's more fun that way. I mean, the more people you get on a track, the less percentage you get. And so, you know, that's another thing that people are like, oh, like, you know, you get a hit and then you're rich. Like, like that pie is divided so many ways, not just, you know, if you have a publishing deal, then they take a piece of it. If you have a manager, if you have an agent, you know, whatever it is, that everyone gets a piece.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a thing that I think a lot of people, most people that are not in creative fields, think that once you get that publishing deal, once one song hits, once you get one book published, once you get, you're rich now, because that's what, you know, you see Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City is getting like $1.50 a word to write for something. And in reality, it's like 3 cents maybe, or something like that. Like, you know, the reality never matches up with how media talks about us. You have straddled both sides of the singer-songwriter career for a long time now. What's better? What do you prefer? Do you want to be behind the microphone? Do you like, you know, is one of them more comfy for you at some stage or the other? Have you always floated between?
I like being able to mix it up. I think probably being a songwriter is a lot of work, but it's a more chill life, I'd say. I mean, depending on how much of a workaholic you are. There were definitely years and years where I was doing double sessions every day and working 7 days a week, you know, day sessions, night sessions, working till 3, 4 in the morning. And that is exhausting and also like not rewarding, because as a songwriter, you don't get paid for your time. Everything you do is on spec, which means that you write for free. Nobody buys your lunch. Nobody pays for your Uber. You just show up and give and give and give. And if you're lucky, you might win the lottery and have a hit And I mean, it's an insane, stupid business model because it's like gambling. It's just like, okay, well, and so then you're just like working yourself to death because it's like, today might be the day, like maybe I'll write the hit today. And it's pretty draining, honestly.
Yeah.
And then, but on the other hand, being an artist, you don't have, well, it depends on if you're signed or not, but as an indie artist, I don't have to answer to anyone. I don't have, there's not really what's the word I'm looking for? A compromise. There's not a compromise with the artist, because sometimes when you write with an artist, like the artist has a vision, I'm trying to help them fulfill that, but maybe I don't agree with what they're trying to say, or maybe whatever. But I'm in the service industry, essentially, as a songwriter. I'm there to serve the artist. And when you're the artist, you get to say what you want. It sounds how you want. The videos look how you want. And so it's nice to have that freedom. And also, as an indie artist anyway, I own my masters, and that is extremely valuable. So I personally, I had a crazy run with the songwriting for other people. And I own a house, like that was very lucrative for me. But it doesn't last forever. You have a run, and then like I may not ever have a hit for someone else again. I have no idea. I know I'm done like chasing it. Like if I will collaborate with the right people if it feels right and if it's fun. But I'm not trying to chase that dragon anymore. Because as an artist, if I make something, I know it's coming out. I know I'm going to put it out. I know I'm going to get, the master side, the publishing side, I can get syncs. I can perform, I can sell merch. It is expensive being an indie artist, but at least I know that the work and my heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears is going to see the light of day. Whereas when you're putting all of that work into someone else, there's no guarantee it'll come out. And I'm not even paid for my time. So it's like, why? What's the point?
You share a quality with Taylor Swift in that because you're the writer, you had this fun little album that was supposed to come out a while back. And there was all of this mess with the masters and who owns it, and your label crushed it, and you really wanted to put it out, and you had a lot of fans that really wanted to hear that album. And you slowly, methodically pulled a Taylor Swift, and you were like, hey, I'm just going to re-record all of this and put it out.
Yeah.
And you're starting to do that. How did you finally just decide to like give into that piece and like, you know what, I'm just going to own it myself and do it all myself? Was that scary? What was that feeling like?
Yes, it was scary. It was scary. It was a long process of trying to negotiate with the label and emails and digging up old legal documents and all these things. And I finally was like, I've waited long enough. I have a studio in my house. I know how to record these things. I know I'm a really good mimic. I can recreate my own voice again. And there were things also that I thought could improve. So I just went ahead and did it because I was tired of being held back. I mean, and it's been so freeing to hear Slay, to be able to just like, and to have other people hear it, most importantly. I mean, demos leaked, and that honestly sucked. Like I appreciate the fans' enthusiasm, but it really complicates things for me when the demos leak. But I mean, honestly, the demos leaking, I guess, was what led me back to, I don't know. I think if the demos hadn't leaked, that I probably would have put it out a long time ago. But because the demos leaked, I felt like the mystique was gone, and I was like, no, nobody's going to care. They've already heard it. There's already access to it. There's no element of surprise. It's like stealing my thunder. It's like blowing out my birthday cake candles, when I don't get to do it. But I think ultimately the fans having these bootleg versions and also the live recordings of when I toured these songs is what led to me being inspired to do it, because 10 years later, people still wanted to hear them. And that was really encouraging. And honestly, like once I got on TikTok, because I really refused to get on TikTok for a long time. I was like, this is not for me. I don't get it. And then when I finally surrendered to the TikTok gods and got on the app, I was like, oh, this is where everybody is.
Yeah.
I had been on Instagram and I had been like, I'm just plateaued. Like, nobody cares. I'm like, I'm still making cool content. Nobody cares. And then I got on TikTok and everyone's like, we love you. There you are. And I was like, oh, I've missed you. And so I listened to the fans and I asked them, which songs do you want to hear? And so some of them, I was not able to re-record.
They just said yes. Just all of it, whatever. Anything you just have, whatever. If you just want to pull out the sofa cushions, whatever songs you can find in there, just all of it. Just give it to us.
Yes. So I was pleasantly surprised that everybody knew the lyrics and there were people that got tattoos of the lyrics and stuff. And so that was really encouraging and inspiring for me. And honestly, I really am releasing this album from 10 years ago for the fans. This is really especially for the fans, because the fans and the forums that I've seen and the comments and everything over the past 10 years is what has kept me going, where I'm like, I may not be a gigantic fan base, but there's a handful of people out there that really care about what I'm doing. And that means a lot to me. And that kept me going. Like, this is a love letter to my fans for sure.
What are you most excited about coming out?
I mean, in re-recording these songs, I kind of like my favorite one kind of keeps switching because like I've gotten to revamp them and these like this like demo-itis I had for a long time where I was like, is this that great? I don't know. I got to revamp them and I'm like, wow, there's something real here. Because I remember I wrote these songs like at the pinnacle of my pop songwriting success. And so I was really on my A game and I always felt like there was really something here. And so I don't know, it keeps changing. I'm excited for Hot City. I'm excited for Don't Get Mad Get Famous. Everything But You has really turned into an epic, heart-wrenching love bop. It's still very up tempo, but I don't know. I think y'all are gonna love it. I'm really excited. I'm really, really proud of it. So I don't know, the whole project. I mean, also something that has been so hard for me is like looking at my Spotify and Apple Music and being like the low amount of songs that I have released. Like when I've written thousands of songs and I'm sitting on all of these incredible songs, and to be like, wow, there's only one full length album on here and it's from 2004. Like, what the fuck? What is wrong with me? Like, why did this happen? And so it's been also a very like reflective time for me looking back at this and being like, what have I been waiting for? And I realized that like, I've really just been waiting for permission. Like I keep waiting for someone to be like, okay, you can be an artist now. Okay, it's your time. And I finally, and honestly, like, I feel like the fans really did that for me, where I was like, okay, you want it, you got it. And I'm just like, I just wish I hadn't waited so long. But I think also it's a timing thing. It's like the fact that these songs still slap all this time later. I'm like, okay, so these prove to be kind of evergreen. They don't sound dated. They don't sound like they're from 2013, other than the fact that it's sparkly maximalist pop music. But it's like,
which is timeless. Evergreen. Who doesn't love sparkly maximalist pop music?
I mean, I guess a lot of newer music fans don't really know the joy.
They are incorrect.
Pop music.
They are incorrect.
They haven't experienced it yet.
No, not at all. At your level of creativity, how do you deal with jealousy? I know that a lot of I come at this from an author's perspective, and there's this weird feeling that there's only so much room at a table somehow, and it's like that's so not remotely true. The table doesn't exist, especially today, how you were talking about earlier, that there is just infinite audience out there, especially because of social media, especially because you can kind of own your own creativity, which, oh my gosh, you like, I want to ask you about your music videos and how you kind of claimed ownership over, that particular aesthetic. But how do you deal with jealousy in that field, in such a big field?
I mean, it depends on the table that you're sitting at, you know. Like, is there room at the table? There's not very much room at the table on radio. I can tell you that. There's only 10, 15 songs on rotation in pop radio at a time in America. It's different when you go to the UK and stuff. When you turn on a pop radio there, it's like, I mean, you won't hear the same song twice in a day. Maybe you'll hear it twice, but you won't hear it 10 times in a row. I don't listen to the radio anymore because I'm like,
I can't think of the last time I turned a radio on.
like in one commute, one like half-hour commute, I'll hear the same song twice. I'm just like, for real, like, what the fuck? It's just like boring. And I think also now that like everyone can choose their own adventure with streaming, like why would you wait to be told what to listen to when you can like pick it yourself? So like radio aside, there's plenty of room at the table. And I think, I don't know, jealousy is kind of like a long ago issue for me personally, because I really like to see other people win, especially people that I know. And like, it used to be, I think like when you're in your early 20s and everyone's like, you know, racing to be the next starlet, it's like, it's cutthroat and catty. But at this stage in my career, I'm just like, I love helping younger up and coming artists. I love seeing my peers that have been around for a minute doing their thing, because in LA specifically, like everyone's always like, oh, everyone's like so fake nice. And it's like, no, like, it's like, you know, if you have a lot of friends, if your friends win, then you're winning too. Like, it's really about like scratching each other's backs and like helping each other out. And also like knowing the struggle, like seeing someone succeed, I'm just like, it gives me hope, where I'm just like, okay, it can be done. And so I just try to build people up as much as I can and be supportive. Like, there's absolutely no point in cutting each other down, because you never know 100%. Who's going to pop off. And like, you don't need to make any enemies on your way up.
People that opened doors for me a few years ago, it's now getting to be my turn to help, you know, open a door. Now I'm at a certain level and I'm able to help introduce them to people that now I'm in the room with. And then one day it's going to be their turn and they're going to loop me back in, and great. Like, you know,
you pay it forward
constantly.
And I think it's a beautiful thing. And like, I love to collaborate and I love to mentor as well. I feel like because I've had such a rocky road in this industry, I have a lot of wisdom. And so I tend to advise a lot of, especially young female artists. Well, I mean, really kind of all across the board, just like what to and what not to do and what to look out for, because I am a bit of a cautionary tale when it comes to industry stuff. So I don't want to see somebody else go through the shit that I went through. And I do think that the industry has changed a lot, where it's not as predatory as it was when I came in. So that's a good thing. But you know, there's still snakes in the grass. So
always. I do. So I mentioned just a few seconds ago, your music videos. You have such a unique point of view whenever you're making a music video, and you really own the entire process. Like literally, like I've watched your TikToks. You are out there cutting cardboard and spray painting stuff and turning yourself into like, you know, She-Ra meets Conan meets, it's fantastic. Where does that piece come from? Like, first of all, how do you have the time? When do you sleep, Bonnie McKee? But like,
I don't.
Is that fun? Is this fun for you? Do you get to play? Is that it? Do you love exploring that side of yourself?
I do. I am a craft nerd, and I always have been since I was a little girl. I've always made my own Halloween costumes, and I loved like redecorating my bedroom when I was a kid and rearranging furniture. Like, I'm very much affected by my environment, and I love like tactical art. Like, I love working with my hands, and I'm a very visual artist, which is, I think, another reason why I was not as happy being just a songwriter, because I didn't have any say in the visuals, and that's a huge part of who I am and how I express myself. So I also love video as an art form, which is why I think I've loved TikTok so much because you get to like make little mini movies, and I love to edit. There's something really satisfying about like putting together pictures and telling a story. And, I've always had a hand in directing my music videos, even when I was younger, but I never like took the credit for it because I didn't really understand that what I was doing was directing. And so now that I'm a grown ass woman, I understand like what it means to direct, and I mean, it's hard work, but when it comes to building the sets and stuff, I really love set design. Like I love props. I love building a world. And so I'm very hands-on in that respect, but I don't sleep. The Slay video that I made a year ago, and that just came out, just about killed me.
You made that a year ago?
Yeah.
How do you sit on it that long?
Because I thought that I had worked out all of my legal issues with the label, with the masters.
Gotcha.
And it turned out I hadn't, so I had to re-record everything. So
fun times.
But so I made, at the end of the video, I really wanted to do an infinity screen. Like I love infinity effects.
Yes. Yeah.
So I built an infinity mirror for the vault. The album is from the vault because it's from 10 years ago. And so I built an actual physical vault. I figured out how to do a two-way mirror so you get the infinity effect. I built a mirror box so that I could have infinity mirror reflections because that's always fun. And I built an infinity screen. I built 2 9-foot projection screens in my backyard and got projectors and had to work out all the math of how to make it fit on the screen and how to light it from the back and then also light myself without diluting the projection. Working with projections is really annoying. But I've learned the hard way through trial and error. But it's just so satisfying and also I'm just impatient. I'm impatient where I'm like, I have this idea. I want to make it happen. I don't want to wait for someone else. I want to find the right person. I just want to make it. And so I go to Home Depot and I buy the wood and I get a hammer and I go and I like go on YouTube and I'm like, what's the best rear projection screen? And I'm like doing all this research. And then I went to a theater fabric company and like bought a giant roll of like projection fabric. And like, I'm really interested in the whole process. I love building the actual sets. And I'm a big fan of like 80s horror and sci-fi. And I love all the practical effects and optical illusions. That's really exciting to me. Like green screen is also very exciting and you can do so much more. And it's very, it's cheaper and it's faster in a lot of ways. But I love building actual sets and having the practical effects. I love it.
What's better, a good melody or good lyrics?
Ooh, really tough to say. I used to really be all about lyrics. And then honestly, after working with Max Martin, he really taught me the importance of melody. And he always said melody is king. But I think that you can have a great melody and a stupid lyric and it'll still be good. But if you have a great melody and a great lyric, then you can have an evergreen song. So I think that the lyric makes a difference between a good song and a great song. But also, when you write a song, it's nice to write a song that everyone can enjoy, whether they speak your language or not, which is where melody comes in. And so I think melody is really important if you want to reach the masses. I think melody is more important. But if you can get that hook together and then also throw in a really thoughtful lyric, then that really moves people. So I'd say they're kind of equal, but
you've been doing really well on social media since you kind of threw yourself into it. Virality can come with the kind of attention that gets folks back into conversations with labels and big wigs and stuff. So you put your new album out, it goes viral, the labels start calling again. Would you go back? Would you go back to the machine, or would you stay indie?
I think I would love to do like an imprint deal, which is where I could have my own like sub label under a bigger label, because then I could
Very Madonna
keep
move.
creative control. Yeah, I could keep my creative control, and I could, but I could have the funding of a major. The hardest part about being indie, and I'm really fortunate that I have my own money from all of the stuff that I did before. But I mean, all of my money goes into my art. Like I don't live a super lavish life. Like all I care about is making art. Like that is, some people want to go on a lavish vacation. Like I want to make a music video and make a movie. Like that's my joy. That's my happy place. So to have help with the funding would be amazing. But as far as like, the machine, like, I don't know, I've kind of just given up on trying to be on the radio. And that's like really the main thing that being involved with a major offers. And I guess touring support and everything. I don't know. I think I like the fight, but it would be nice to have some help with funding. And I think that at this point I have enough experience and insight that I could run my own label. So that's definitely in the cards for me eventually. Just all these gatekeepers got to catch up with me.
Speaking of, running your own label, who's exciting you right now in music?
Let's see. I've been working with Tessa Violet, who I love so much. She's an incredible songwriter and just a really fun collaborator. Peach PRC is incredible. Cobra Man, big fan of Cobra Man. I'm trying to think. Kid Sister. I don't know if you're familiar with Kid Sister. They're like kind of like Baby Haim a little bit.
Oh, I love that.
They're incredible. They're really fun. They're really cute, and they're like real musicians. Play all their instruments and just incredibly talented. I just have really enjoyed meeting this new like crop of like the new up and coming artists. It's really inspiring and fun, and like their perspective is so different. And it's also funny to work with an artist that was like, I grew up listening to your music, and they're not thinking about like my 2004. They're like being born in 2004. They're just like, wow, I remember in kindergarten listening to California Girls, and I'm like, wow,
Oh man,
it's wild. But it's cool though. I really enjoy it.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Probably Since You've Been Gone.
Love it. Well, now I need to hear your cover of that.
Bring the house
Bonnie
down.
McKee, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule, and I am so appreciative of the time that you took. For folks who want to get a little bit more of you, tell people how they can find you online and what music you have coming out.
Okay. Well, you can find me on all the social platforms. It's just at Bonnie McKee, just my name. Keep it simple. And my new single Slay is out now. You can check out the music video. Follow me on TikTok. That's where a lot of the action happens. And I read every comment, and I love hearing from you guys. So come say hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And that is going to do it here for this episode of Head on Fire. All of my gratitude to my guest today, Bonnie McKee. Oh my God, I cannot believe I just interviewed Bonnie McKee. Her new song Slay is out now. And if you like this show and you want to support it, there are a number of ways to help. Consider sharing it with your friends on social media. Honestly, that kind of organic friend-to-friend recommendation is the best way to grow a show. But you could also like or rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Basically, whatever app you're using to listen to this, it probably has a way to rate it. And if you do that, leave a review. All of those little interactions tell the algorithm of the app that you're using that other listeners like you might like this show. If you hate the ads at the beginning and end of each episode, consider joining my Patreon on a monthly basis. Patrons receive additional audio and video content, as well as archived episodes, a private Discord server, and fun little goodies along the way. Earlier this summer, they got a free book from me. So sign up at patreon.com/headonfirepod. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, I am at Head on Fire Pod everywhere. I do feel like I should say, I know that Twitter is now called X. I'm still on there, but I'm really only going to be using that for updates. If you'd like to get the experience of me tweeting, I'm now mostly on Blue Sky, which is the same handle, Head on Fire Pod. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for downloading the show. Thank you guys so much for continuing to listen and making little dreams of mine come true by letting me interview all of my favorite people. So this has been really cool. I'm going to go, but remember, never stop seeking illumination like a man with his head on fire seeks water. Be well.